Welcome back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Well, I guess the Wild are officially eliminated, but I really think that Michael Russo eliminated the Wild from contention sometime last summer, and it just took the Wild a while to figure out that was going to happen. You could have saved them so much travel expenses if you just told them, don't bother this year.
Yeah, it was definitely a slow torture to the end, that's for sure. I remember you asked me like 2 or 3 podcasts ago if I thought the Wild were going to make the playoffs, and I stuttered through a nonsensical no.
You didn't say no. You just didn't feel comfortable saying no.
Yeah, it's like, well, you kind of actually, believe it or not, caught me off guard, but yeah, no.
What I tried to do.
It was so obvious the way that they were just, falling all over themselves and not taking advantage of their home ice, most notably, and then, of course, the irony of last night's game and going out and beating the crap out of the Winnipeg Jets was that's what the Wild didn't do enough of at home. I mean, this is a team that lost 18 of their previous 23 games. We're the lowest scoring home team in the league, and never took advantage of backup goalies. I mean, last night they played Eric Comrie, their Manitoba Moose goalie, in a second of a back-to-back situation, and this kid comes in and he. The bed, and that's something the Wild just didn't do all season long, and it was so frustrating. I wrote my story. It seemed like anytime they were in this type of situation, they get 10 shots through the first 30 or 40 minutes, and last night they actually finally took advantage of it. They got some fluke goals, and they completed the sweep, and so they teased all year long, and then last night was a perfect ending, if you think about it. They go out and they beat the crap out of the Jets, and then the Avalanche have a 2-0 deficit against the Edmonton Oilers. Everything's going their exact way, and then second period starts in Denver, and then boom, the Edmonton Oilers trip up, and the Avs wind up putting the Wild out of their misery.
This is the Russo-Souhan Show, one of the founding shows on TalkNorth.com. Subscribe on iTunes, your favorite podcast app. Go to TalkNorth.com to find the archives or to listen to the latest episode. Thanks to our sponsors, Twill and the Edina Galleria, FixologyRepair.com, Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, and Bite Squad. Promo code TalkNorth gets you your first delivery free. So, to me, pulling the camera back, it is fascinating to me how so many franchises, including the Minnesota franchises, once they develop a problem, they have so much trouble fixing that problem, no matter how many coaches, general managers, generations of players they bring in. The Wild has always struggled to find people who could put the puck in the net, who could finish. Twins have always struggled to develop their own pitching. Vikings have always struggled to land a franchise quarterback. And these are problems that these franchises have been battling, and Timberwolves have every problem you can have. They've been dealing with this forever. First thing Fletcher did when he got the job was trade for a bunch of young guys he thought could score. They still haven't gotten there.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I don't know. I mean, it's not an easy question. I don't know. Maybe start an expansion team. Maybe that's what Craig should do, is go and sell this thing and buy Seattle.
Ooh.
I mean, honestly, and I think that's, I joke about that, but I think that's a frustrating thing for a lot of fan bases, including the Wild, is that, you watch Vegas come in and, for the sum of $500 million, you build a cup contender right away, and a lot of it helps. It's in Vegas. I mean, Jimmy Schultz chose Vegas today, not just because of the opportunity, but I'm sure Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you do? I don't know. I mean, they have a lot of cap space to splash around this summer, but it's got to be the right moves. I mean, to me, it's like you're almost better off not spending on overpriced free agents and just building the long way and through the draft and young players and try to continue what you're doing here. And you hope that guys like Donato and Fiala can turn into those goal scorers. Fiala shows flashes. Donato loves to shoot the puck, but he doesn't score a ton. Only has 4 goals so far. So it's not easy, and you're right. It's the history of this organization. I mean, last night Ken Weeb from one of the Winnipeg papers tweeted out that Blake Wheeler had his second consecutive 90 assist year, and I pointed out, retweeted that the Wild have had one 80-point scorer in the history of the organization. It's something about, quote, our ice.
That's the other thing that has been a long-running trend with this franchise. Anytime they come up with a slogan, it ends up making them look bad. Fight till the end, which is at the end of the first playoff series. It's amazing how the slogans backfire on them. If I worked in sports marketing, I would never put out a slogan that people could just make fun of.
Yeah. The Our Ice thing is just an interesting campaign because you are just, first of all, you're trusting that it's actually water. And second of all, I just got stuck in the garage of the local Starbucks here in downtown Minneapolis. I've been going to this Starbucks since it's open. It's my favorite one. And they have a little parking garage where you park, and I went and got my.
Is that the one across from the
Federal Reserve? Yeah. And then when I was driving out, the garage door wouldn't open, which normally would be a dream of mine to be stuck. I was going to say. But yeah, so no. I got out, but I was a little concerned that I would have to call you and say I've been stuck at a Starbucks, and you wouldn't believe me.
No, I wouldn't have believed.
Yeah, no doubt. There have been a lot of funny things, and I've made the joke too for a couple of years since they started this Our Ice campaign that maybe the problem is that they have all this invasive species being just embedded into the ice, and it's
barnacles
screwing things up. Just algae and bacteria and God knows what.
God, you're writing a column for me. Thank you.
It is just kind of just ugh.
I know who likes lake water.
Yeah,
I mean everybody loves lakes, but nobody actually likes lake water.
And they say that it goes through the filter, the purification system and all that, whatever they have. But there's still those times before a game where everybody takes like they have the special ceremony before the game where somebody grabs water from like Rainy Lake or whatever, and pours it on the ice.
Right.
And so that's pretty funny. And did you know so it is like illegal to take a bunch of water from lakes in an area and just plant it, but so the team had to get like a special dispensation or whatever from like whoever's in charge of that to allow them to do it as long as like a certain amount of like ounces per fan to pour it in their little machine. So it's kind of interesting.
That is.
Yeah, it is interesting, like how they come up with this type of stuff. It's that one was a fascinating one. I kind of get. I mean, I get it.
I get it too.
But
and listen,
and it wouldn't be a joke if they could win on home ice.
And big picture, the Wild has done a great job with their marketing. They've made fans feel like they're part of the franchise.
The state of hockey is a brilliant.
State of hockey is brilliant. It all works, but it's just that when you don't play well, jerks like us are going to have some fun with it.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, I mean, look, everything's about recycled, and even fans now. It's why I said when when Paul Fenton, called Kevin Fiala a game breaker and electric stick, that I would not have thrown personally as a GM. I wouldn't have thrown that pressure on the kid because now that stuff's going to be recycled when he isn't. And so now, anytime Fiala turns the puck over or does something bad in a game, people are like, well, in fairness, he did break the game, like that type of stuff. He did change the game. So, that type of stuff just always comes back in a way.
And I'm going to contradict myself here, too. I actually like the fact that people will give us good quotes. I like the fact that they'll be honest. So I would rather have Fenton say he is an electric stick than say, we'll see what happens. I mean, I covered Terry Ryan for years, and he was one of my favorite people in sports, but he was he would never say anything that, really interesting about young
normally
players.
As a GM, you want to level back the expectations. Right. And then if they become the player, then, well, surprise.
Right.
And so this one was a tough one, and that's why, same thing, I'd be a little scared when they start comparing Nico Sturm to Mikko Koivu. I mean, the guy is the all-time leading scorer in Wild history. But back to the...
hey, you know what? Let me interrupt real quickly. Let's thank Twill and the Edina Gallery. TwillMN.com. Updated traditional menswear that fits your life, now changing over to spring and golf apparel. Go check it out.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
I don't remember what it was. What was it?
We have a million. We were talking about you were talking about Sturm, and then
one reason why they could potentially be struggling at home right now is the practice facility. I do think there's something to, and look, I just think that there is something to practicing at your ice, on your sheet of ice, and in that arena, and they didn't do it at all once this season. And I'm not blaming the practice facility, but you know what I mean?
So Tria should have a big sign that says, not our ice.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? It's like, every game before you're home, you're practicing at your practice facility, and it almost makes like the home rink, and every team has a practice facility now, or most teams do,
right.
But it makes your home rink almost like, foreign to a lot of guys, and all of a sudden, especially down the stretch here, the last couple months, you're totally revamped the roster. You have a bunch of kids coming up from Iowa. You have a bunch of new guys like Fiala and Donato and Aberg and all these guys. I think one other, or Hunt and Potato. And it's like, every time they come to the rink, it's like they've never been on that sheet of ice before. So, it's just one theory.
All right. What the hell? I mean, it's as good as any other right now.
It's probably BS.
Let's this is a good opportunity to catch up on a lot of Twitter questions from R.D. Jones. What kind of player can the Wild reasonably expect to draft in their current position without winning the lottery?
I mean, there's always going to be forwards or defensemen that are in that position that have talent. I mean, just look around when the Wild look right after the Wild pick in a lot of these drafts. There are guys like Ricard Raquel, and there's some years where the second round is just as good as the first, or the second round would be as good as some years first round. So, just if the Wild, just with the Wild picking in the top 15 this season, they should get a pretty good player.
From Sam Randall, which player is most finicky about his gear?
I was going to say the first person that jumped in my head was Wes Walls, but he hasn't played for the Wild since 2009, 2008. But finicky about gear, I mean, Mikko, definitely. The goalies always are. That's one I'll have to come back to. Maybe I'll ask some of the trainers.
I know as a lacrosse player, I was the opposite of finicky. I just wanted all I cared about that it didn't fall apart. I liked old equipment that was barely held together, but it was the most comfortable.
Yeah, somebody left a voicemail for me, and I said I'm doing a podcast, and they said, "What's there to talk about?"
Only everything.
Season is over. A lot of people a lot of people have the old shoulder pads that they've worn forever, or, skates, or it's pretty funny what some people wear.
From AT Pep Playboy, assuming the Wild don't win the lottery, does Michael have a player he thinks the Wild should look for in the draft?
I have not.
Caulfield, Kaliev, are we in a position to draft position, are we in position to draft position, or just best player available?
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't think any of us. I remember all the work I put into last year's draft, and then they take Philip Johansson, and I look. I all of a sudden I'm like, holy mackerel! I've never even heard of this kid, and I was like embarrassed. And then all of a sudden I realized that nobody had heard of the kid. It wasn't even projected to be a first-round pick. They went completely off the board. And I think I told this story on the Fan today, and I don't know if I've told it on the podcast, but last week, about 3 weeks ago, Johan Garpenlov, who I covered in Florida, left wing, played with Rob Niedermer and Scott Melby, number 29. He was down in Florida scouting the Wild and the Panthers, and Eriksson Ek was one player he was really paying attention on. Well, that night Eriksson Ek was god-awful. Barkov lit the Wild up for 5 or 6 points, whatever it was. And so Garpy decided that he was going to come to Minnesota to scout Eriksson Ek again against the San Jose Sharks. Well, second shift of the game, Eriksson Ek gets hurt. So poor Garpenlov flew all the way to Minnesota to scout him and didn't even see him. But anyway, that night I asked him about Philip Johansson. Somebody on Twitter is the one that actually put it in my head, and I'm like, actually, that's a good idea. And so he's the Sweden, if I didn't say this, Garpenlov is the Sweden GM. And I asked him about Philip Johansson and if he had a chance of making it in the NHL, and he honestly had never heard of him. And then he looks him up between periods and comes to me, and he's like, he's on the second-tier team. He's got like a goal and 2 assists. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, no, I really don't know him.
Wow.
And this is a guy that's choosing the world championships in the world.